moments from now, Hillary Clinton is set to take the first step toward what could be a big political comeback.
She is giving the keynote address at the New York Democratic Convention, and with President Biden's approval rating underwater, it has a lot of people wondering what just might be in store come 2024. We'll talk with Katie Pavlich about all this in just a moment.
Can't wait, but we begin just 4 blocks north of Fox News headquarters here in Midtown Manhattan, where it's a who's who of big-name Democrats, all leading up to Hillary herself. Laura Ingle is live at the Sheraton Times Square. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Sandra. Well, indeed, New York State Democrats are very fired up over their nominating convention here today. And while there is a lot of action going on the floor, all eyes, as you mentioned, are up on that stage looking for the keynote speaker, former New York Senator Hillary Clinton, who was supposed to talk at 3 p.m. Eastern. And it looks like there's a little bit of a time change. She just tweeted a short time ago. Let's read it to you now. She wrote this: lots of inspiring leaders speaking to the future of our state and our country today. I'll be delivering a keynote address around 2:20 p.m. Join us. Now, this is all the first time that we will be hearing from the former presidential candidate in person since the accusations and special counsel John Durham's report were made public last week. That is another big thread going on here today. Durham's report contained allegations that Clinton campaign cybersecurity lawyer Robert Sussman shared internet data information gathered from Trump Tower and the White House by his friend and client tech executive Rodney Joffe with the FBI and CIA to establish an interference and narrative. And new today, Sussman's lawyer pushing back, filing a motion to dismiss the indictment, saying Sussman did not lie to the FBI and calling this a case of, quote, prosecutorial overreach. Now, a lot of people wondering if today's keynote address by Clinton could include a hint of any possible hopes of a presidential run in 2024, as you mentioned, something that the vice chair of the New York State Democratic Committee told me she doesn't see as a possibility. Listen.
I really don't see that happening. I see her continuing to be a warrior for Democrats up and down the ticket and continuing her foundation work and her work as an author and her love as a grandmother, but I don't see her running for president.
All right, so it's a wait-and-see situation, and we do expect her to talk about the midterms. That's what we've been told, but we'll wait and see. We've got about 20 minutes to go. Back to you.
Okay, quite a setup. Laura Ingle in New York for us. Thank you. Let's bring in Katie Pavlich, editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Katie, great to have you here. So,
Great to see you, Sandra.
You think she's got big plans, Hillary?
Well, look, President Joe Biden ran for president 3 times. The 3rd time was the charm. Maybe Hillary Clinton is going after that same strategy, losing twice, maybe winning the 3rd time. But she certainly is laying the groundwork to get back in the political game after being not absent for the last 4 years, but not being completely involved in diving in. Now, when it comes to 2024, the potential for her to run, there was this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about a month ago, co-authored by Doug Schoen, who tried to argue that she's an outsider candidate. And as a result of the low approval rating of Joe Biden and his vice president, there may be an opening for her. But I don't think it's fair to categorize her as an outsider candidate. But in terms of her prospects, she's probably looking at the Democratic bench and saying, well, the vice president, Kamala Harris, was supposed to be the heir to Joe Biden. Her approval is in the tank, not just among Americans, but among Democrats as well. And although Joe Biden says he's going to run again in 2024, there's lots of speculation that he's not going to and that the field will be wide open. So certainly she's doing a lot of things like her master classes and getting back in the public eye on the pop culture side of things. But now, as we're seeing, she's giving the speech in New York, where she, of course, is a senator and spends a lot of time at her home.
And it's not just this upcoming speech moments from now that is leading to this possible run speculation. It was also things like this she said back in December, I believe, on the Democratic Party and its future. Listen.
I think that it is a time for some, careful thinking about what wins elections, and not just in deep blue districts where a Democrat and a liberal Democrat or so-called progressive Democrat is going to win. Nothing is going to get done if you don't have a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate. And our majority comes from people who win in much more difficult districts.
So it was back then that she already suggested some careful thinking was needed for her party. She's had some time.
Well, and if you listen carefully to who she's speaking to, she's taking a shot at the far left, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez squad-like members of the House there, and trying to speak to a more moderate section of the Democratic Party, and therefore moderates inside the rest of the country who thought they were electing a moderate in Joe Biden, but have gotten more of a far-left administration from him. And so she's carefully talking to a very specific audience there and setting herself up to be someone who can be representative of all kinds of people. But she has, Democrats are going to have to fight it out. She's going to have to establish support inside the Democratic Party. And also, let's not forget, at a time when Americans are looking for newcomers, outsiders, both on the left and the right, she is anything but. She's been in Washington for a very long time. And as we know with this recent Durham indictment, she is not scandal-free, and scandal continues to follow her even well out of her public office days.
All right. Well, so they've exchanged speakers there. We're watching this live in New York City, at the Sheraton, probably about 13 minutes away. She herself just tweeted out that she's coming up at 2:20 p.m. Eastern time. We know, though, she is staying mum on the spying allegations because we saw her enter her daughter Chelsea's place here in New York City. She was asked about it. She didn't say a thing. But then she put out a tweet yesterday, and she called the allegations and revelations that she hired people to spy on Donald Trump desperate. She called it a fake scandal even, and said it's total nonsense. So all of that is the backdrop of what we are about to see.
Indeed, but it's also important to point out, while she claims that these allegations coming from special counsel Durham, these allegations aren't necessarily just coming from Republicans, as she would like to portray in this Vanity Fair article that she sent out for people to read, calling spying allegations unfounded and untrue. This is a woman who has never accepted that Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election. And in fact, many of her campaign surrogates and officials, including Jake Sullivan, who is now the national security advisor for President Joe Biden, was active in perpetuating this false narrative well into the Trump administration that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government to win that election, which we know after special counsel Robert Mueller's report, that was not true. And so there's plenty of evidence to show that this was a narrative that was perpetuated by the Clinton campaign, whether it was the Steele dossier that they paid for, or whether it's this new allegation that they paid for this tech firm to somewhat monitor not just Donald Trump's personal servers at his residence, but also servers that are connected to the executive office of the president, which of course brings up questions about national security.
All right. Well, we will see from her in just a few minutes from now. Katie Pavlich.
Indeed.
Just ahead of that. Thank you. All right, John.
See if she tips her hat at all.